Aloha and mahalo for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about Medicare enrollment procedure and penalty. I'm Amber Millsap. I'm the Community Relations Officer for Hawaii Central Federal Credit Union. With me today, I have Herb Hussey of Windward Financial. I want to ask Herb to tell us a little bit about himself. I know he's been in the business for over 30 years, right?
300
Herb?
years.
300 years.
My background is that I grew up here. I went to Damien. I got a degree. I taught high school at St. Louis for a long time. You may have heard of them. They play football. Then in 1990, when my kids decided that they wanted to eat on a regular basis, I went to work for American Savings Bank. I started there and I was assigned as a retirement planner to the state of Hawaii. So my job has been a retirement planner for all of that time. Very, very long time.
Well, as I have been learning, I've been learning a lot from Herb, and particularly I've had my own experiences with Medicare recently with a family member being ill for a few months, and found out a little bit, some things about Medicare the hard way.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we want to start is not learning things the hard way.
The way to think of it is that Medicare started in 1965. And I know it looks like a mistake, but we're actually going to start with part two, because part two is all the tough stuff that you got to do to get through Medicare. That's actually the more important stuff. We'll come back to the technical stuff at the beginning, which is parts and stuff. But let's start with part two. But the way to understand it is Medicare is the destination Medicare plan for a huge majority of people in the United States. Most states across the union have medical plans that are related to their county or district or state. But Medicare is a nationwide federal plan. So because of that, it is more complex and it has its own history. Medicare started actually in 1965, and it was put together and approved and went live under the Johnson administration. Now, to show you where people were in terms of their lives, right? One of the entry points of Medicare is that you're supposed to enroll in Part A, and there's A, B, C, and D, but you're supposed to enroll in Part A at age 65. Well, think about this. If Medicare started in 1965, and you were 65 at the time that Medicare started, you were born in 1900.
Yeah.
What that means is, right, you're 65 years old in 1965, but the interesting thing is that the life expectancy of people born in 1900 were in their 40s. So Medicare was never designed to be the kind of Medicare plan or medical plan where people, had another career or they went traveling across the world. So when we think about it, we tend to think, Medicare is around and it's been like this. Actually, it's for people who were really going to be alive only just a few more years, and then they were going to pass away. So that longevity part has actually changed the dynamic of Medicare. It's a federal plan for the elderly, but people tend to get this Medicare confused with Medicaid, all right, because it sounds similar. But Medicare is a federal medical plan that's taken care of under the Social Security Administration. Medicaid, on the other hand, generally is long-term care for indigents. So it's different, right? Medicare is the medical side. Medicaid is long-term care for people who are poor. Next slide, please. Here are some things that we need to understand about it because it's important for us to understand what we're dealing with. When you apply for Medicare and you have it, all right, understand that it is a medical plan where the government is going to provide payment to your doctor in the United States. It doesn't cover you outside the United States. So if you decide that you want to go, like the picture shows, traveling around and walking the Great Wall of China, you don't have Medicare. If you're traveling overseas and you want to do that, that's important. You might want to pick up a supplemental health plan that covers you for international travel. because Medicare will not cover you outside the United States. Next slide, please. One of the characteristics of life nowadays is that people oftentimes end up in needing long-term care, where they have lost any one of those activities of daily living, like the ability to dress themselves, feed themselves, transportation, or you have application type of issues like the ability to think correctly, or they have health, mental issues. All right. There's an assumption that long-term care is covered under Medicare. It's not. Not at all. What is there are certain number of days of coverage if you're in the hospital in a skilled medical facility where there's nurses. But if you're at home and people need to take care of you, or if you're in a facility, you're not. So
this is where I got in trouble.
That's where
right?
stuff happens.
I was looking for a long-term care program for my loved one, and found out that Medicare doesn't cover that sort of thing.
Doesn't cover it.
Yeah, so
It doesn't cover it. We ran into the same situation with my mom, who was diagnosed at 94 with dementia. She's in a care home, but it's not covered by Medicare. So we have to figure out a way to deal with that issue, right? So it doesn't cover you outside the United States, and it's not long-term care. Next slide, please. Here's an important one, and it shows up on the neighbor islands. Doctors are not required to take you. So just because you have Medicare, one of the things that people are usually sometimes surprised by is that when they go to a doctor and they're on Medicare, the doctor may say, "I'm sorry, I can't." And it's usually because of the reimbursement. What the doctors get paid is not enough for them to cover their own expenses. So one of the things that oftentimes people in the neighbor islands face is that if there is a specialist that they need, they may be coming to Oahu, right? There may not be the specialist on the outer islands that they need. So doctors are not obligated to take you. Next. One simple way of figuring out how to adapt to Medicare is ask your doctor what he or she accepts in terms of a Medicare Advantage plan, if that's what you choose to have. All right. What you want to do is try to maintain the same care providers. So if you have a conversation with them, several years before, and say, in a few years I'm going to go to Medicare. Will you still be able to be my doctor? Is that okay? Most times in Hawaii, I've heard doctors say, sure. But oftentimes it's a situation where if you come to see the doctor after you're on Medicare, you may find that they may not. So you want to have that conversation with them early. Give yourself plenty of time to do this. And that's the key. One of the key things here is that there are enrollment periods for all the different parts, and there's a sequence. So we want to be able to do the enrollment in a period of time where you don't stress yourself out because you're losing coverage with your employer and then you haven't been able to get formally approved by Medicare. So give yourself time. And one of the ironies of retirement planning is everybody wants it to be simple, and it never is. It's always complicated, so we want to be very thoughtful about how we do this. Give yourself plenty of time.
How much time should we be giving ourselves? When you say plenty of time, what does plenty of time mean?
In my experience as a practitioner, if the person's going to enroll in Medicare, and they know they need to have that enrollment settled, say, by January 1, I would start 6 months earlier.
Oh, good 6 months. Okay.
That's what I would do. Because you want to make sure that you can get a hold of them. They're going to give you the Medicare card. You want all of that figured out and understood by the time you're going to need it. So my experience is 6 months. Some people go shorter. I don't think that's wise. I would go longer.
You feel 6 months, even longer would be good.
6 months should be okay.
Okay.
6 months should be.
All right.
All right, we can continue.
Yeah, continue.
Next slide, please. Be aware of deadlines. And that's going to become a bigger issue when it gets into when things have to be done. And it's one of the things oftentimes where if the deadline is a certain point, You want to hit that deadline. If you're late, oftentimes there's penalties. This applies not only to Medicare, but Social Security and things like this. So we want to be aware of the deadlines. Next. Okay, this is part A, or part one. This is the beginning.
This is the beginning.
Well, what I've always found was that if people understand the pitfalls, they can see them coming. But if we do part B, where we talk about A, B, and C, and D, then it's like, where are the pitfalls? So let's begin with part one. Medicare has 4 parts, A, B, C, and D, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. All right? And one of the things we have to realize is that they've always referred to these things as parts, not sections or chapters, they're parts. So what we first want to do is understand what the different parts are, because when they refer to them or you enroll in things, you're enrolling in parts. So let's go through the different parts. All right, next slide. Okay, first, Medicare is administered by the Social Security Administration, which is a bit odd when you think about it. You enroll in Medicare by going to Social Security. But Social Security not only takes care of Social Security and Medicare, it also takes care of Medicaid. So there's 3 big federal programs that are under the Social Security Administration. Part A, okay, Alpha, this is hospitalization. This is when, if you are in the hospital for any reason, your employer and your employer's insurance carrier wants that bill to go to the feds, because they're going to pay for it rather than the employer or the employer's medical plan. So you enroll in hospitalization. Next, you enroll at 65. And this is the one part of Medicare where it's age related. Even if you have medical coverage under your employer,
If you're still working.
you still have to enroll in Medicare Part A at age 65. And the rule for Medicare Part A is 3-1-3. You can enroll over a 7-month period, 3 months before the month of your birthday, the month of your birthday, and 3 months after.
What happens if you don't enroll at age
There's
65?
no penalty, but what happens is that if you end up in the hospital for any reason, that cost for that hospitalization is going to fall to your present employer, because Medicare is not involved. What you find if you have medical coverage, like if you're the state employee or work somewhere else and you're 65 years old, your current carrier, your current active medical carrier is going to encourage you, go register now. Because if you end up in the hospital, they want that bill to go to the feds.
Well, you said there was a 7-month period.
Right.
So there's no registering for Part A outside of that 7-month period, or do I have to wait for the next year?
You have to, if you go outside that 7-month period, then you have to follow the rules that is set up. But the general rule is that for Part A, you have it is based on your age.
Okay.
Okay. Next. Okay. Part B or Part Bravo are doctor visits. So this is the one where you're now having your doctor payments covered under Medicare. You enroll in Part B, okay, when you have already enrolled in Part A. All right, you did it back when you're 65, and you qualify for B. When you qualify for B, when you lose your present coverage. So let's say that you're 68 and you're going to quit your job and you're not going to go work anymore. You're going to stay home. You're going to go on Medicare. You enroll in Medicare Part A at 65. But now 3 years later, all right, you're going to enroll in Part B. You're actually going to enroll in the other parts too, but it starts with Part B. All right.
Okay.
What happens? Why are you going then? Because you've already enrolled in Part A at 65, and you qualify for B. You qualify for B, meaning that you've lost your present coverage. And the coverage can be your own, through your own job, or maybe covered under your spouse.
Okay.
Okay? So that's why it's not unusual for people who are in their 60s or 70s to have only Part A, B.
So you must be enrolled in Part A, though.
You have to be, in order to enroll in Part B, must be already enrolled in Part Alpha and qualify for B
Because you've lost your current
because
coverage.
you've lost your coverage.
Okay.
Okay?
So I guess C's next? Oh, no, A, B.
Well,
no,
let's talk about
C, D. No, I'm just kidding.
there's a hidden thing
Oh,
with
is
Part
there
B.
something? Okay.
Next slide. It has a premium.
Oh, shucks. That's the part we hate.
Part B has a premium. Okay. Part
much is
B,
it?
you pay for every month. It's usually, it changes year to year, but right now it's about $150 a month.
For everyone?
Yeah, anybody who's on Part B has a premium.
The premium is always 150?
No, the premium can be higher.
Oh,
Okay, let me explain a little bit about the premium. Why is it there? This is the part of Medicare where the amount that you pay depends upon the amount of the family income.
oh,
So for example, if, let's say, one husband and wife, the husband is still working, the wife is on Medicare, all right? She'll say, oh, the premium for Part B should be like $150. No, it may be higher, because when they look at how much the premium is, they're taking into consideration the family income.
so husband's income.
Can be higher. So it's not unusual for people to find out that, particularly in the beginning, that the Part B premium is higher than at $154 or so. Now, of all the organizations out there that have a hand in Medicare, the state of Hawaii has, in my opinion, a really good plan, because the state of Hawaii, for most of their retirees, they will reimburse the retiree for the Part B premium. They will reimburse them.
Well, that's
So
nice.
that's why if you're a state of Hawaii employee or a county employee, you want to follow the rules and regulations of the state when it comes to your medical plan, because their medical plan is quite robust.
You were kind of talking about this earlier, and want to make sure everyone hears the story that there is some sort of penalty.
There's a penalty if you enroll late.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
The penalty is this: if you enroll late in Part B, okay, there is a penalty. The thing about it is that it's permanent.
What do
It
you
doesn't go away.
mean? Okay.
Okay, so whatever that penalty is, it's permanent. It's a thing where if you're supposed to enroll now, but you take off a year, like I know people that have left the country for 2 years.
Okay.
When they come back, that's when they enroll in Part B, because they were away for 2 years. They say, well, I don't need it, so I'm not going to use it, so why am I going to pay for it? Well, when they come back, they're 2 years late, and the government turns around and dings them with a permanent penalty for their Part B.
I don't understand that, but I guess that's just the rules.
I'll give you an
It's just
example.
not fair, right? It just doesn't seem fair, right? And I'm sure those people feel that way. They're like, what's going
wait.
on? What do you mean for the rest of my life?
Well,
Basically, right?
we're talking about a rule. We're not talking about fair. That's two
Okay.
different things.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of another rule that's there, okay, that people don't always think about, right? If you're taking Social Security and you're going to apply for Social Security, the open date for Social Security is age 62. Then your full retirement age is usually 66 and some months, depending on your date of birth, all right? That full retirement age is out here. Then they say, well, at 70, you should probably start because it doesn't go up anymore. All right, so that age from 62 to your full retirement age, you can start Social Security, all right? But the problem is, if you started early in here, all right, you're going to take a reduction from your full retirement age.
Which is,
So if they're
you
going to
said
give you
70?
$2,000 out here at the full retirement age, right, but you start early, you're going to take, it's going to be down here, right? The problem with that is that this is a penalty that is permanent.
Timeline is important.
Yeah, timing is important.
Okay.
And you know, if you have an HR department in at where you work, and you're transitioning out because you're retiring, you want to have that conversation with them. They're usually very knowledgeable people. If you have a retirement planner or even an insurance agent, right? Ask them, if I do this, what's the situation? Spend time. Call the Social Security Administration. Ask them, I'm going to apply for Medicare. I'm going to do it at this point. Is this okay? Am I off on this? Make sure.
Okay.
All right. Next question or next slide. A Part C Medicare Advantage plan is a part of Medicare where an insurance company is going to manage your full Medicare experience. You hear of HMSA having a Medicare Advantage plan, or Kaiser, or they have other companies that do. What happens there is that once your enrollment is done and you're enrolled in Medicare, you now have a plan, maybe put out by a local company or a mainland firm if you purchased it. And what they're going to do is they're going to manage your care. Oftentimes you're in a network with doctors, and there may be other benefits there. Maybe they could save you some cost on things, but you have to be enrolled in Medicare A and B, all right? There's still a separate premium for B. So having a Medicare Advantage plan doesn't change that.
Wait,
But what
separate. Did you say there's another premium for this?
There can be another premium.
Oh,
Or
okay.
sometimes the Medicare Advantage plans are structured so that they have no cost. The thing that's interesting about Medicare Advantage plans is that they're sold at the county level. So if you bought it in Honolulu, or Honolulu County, it's designed actually for this area. So if you're going to buy it and you're buying it from your agent or whoever person you're talking with, you might want to think about, am I going to travel? Will I be away from Hawaii where this plan may not be effective? Or does it have a network of doctors that I continue to see even if I'm spending half the year visiting the grandkids?
On the mainland.
On the
Not
mainland.
in China, yeah.
No, it doesn't cover you. It doesn't cover you outside the United States.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Not even the Advantage plan.
No, it won't. Next slide, please. Part D, which is a Medicare prescription drug plan, where you purchased a plan in order to help you with your medication. Sometimes, if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, that prescription drug plan is built into it. Sometimes you purchase it separately, right? But in either case, it's an important plan to have because this is how you receive the prescription drugs that you have. The key thing on a prescription drug plan, to figure out if that's the appropriate plan, is the question of the formulary.
What do you mean?
The formulary is a list of the medicines that are in your plan. And you want to make sure that if you're taking X, Y, Z meds, those medicines are in that formulary.
I see.
Because if not, then you bought something you can't use. Okay, so when you purchase it, whether it's through an agent or a bank or your whoever you're working with, okay, you want to make sure, are my meds in that formulary, and where are they? Are they under the generic part where the cost is very modest? Is it expensive? Is it experimental? So, because when you have a Medicare prescription drug plan, that's how you're going to receive your prescription medication. Most retirees have at least one or two prescription meds that they're on.
Are we done?
I'm
Are we done already? No, we're not done. Actually, I think I want to just check and open it up for questions. If those at home have any questions, I do know that was a lot of information. But I'm sure you guys came to, you probably have specific questions. So please type your questions in the chat and I'll pass them on over to Herb. Okay, so it says, sorry.
Okay.
So who do we pay Part B to?
You pay it to Medicare, and usually it's done in coordination with Social Security. They automatically withdraw it and they pay it. Or you can pay it using a electronic draft, and it goes to, and you're paying it to Medicare. Medicare tells you what your Part B premium is going to be, and then you have to set up a payment to do it. Usually it's done through the Medicare, through Social Security, excuse me.
And hopefully there's no lifetime penalty, right?
Yeah, so you want to be on it so that you don't get dinged with a penalty.
What was it again? 65 and you qualify?
For Part B? For Part B.
What was it? Because I should have wrote this down. Okay, so
Alpha, 65. Beta, already in alpha and qualified because you're losing coverage. So
Okay.
two parts.
okay. So it looks like no questions. Herb answered all of my questions. Yeah, okay, that's Vanel. But Dave, you have any more questions? I
get
need
it,
to
Dave.
absorb.
Dave, I understand.
Yeah. Well, really, I just want to thank you all for joining us from home. This production will be available. We'll be airing it in probably a couple of months via Olelo. So thank you all for joining us. I know that we again I really appreciate your patience with us, and we started a little late today, but I hope that you found the information valuable. And again, I want to thank Herb for coming out and just educating us. I've learned so much from this man. And I also want to thank Olelo Community Media for all the work that they've been doing in the background to make this production possible. And with that, I want to say aloha and ahui ho. Thank you for joining us.